Gotta get the desktop audio going. Okay, here we go. Welcome to the live stream. I'm Israel Lopez, and today we're going to be talking about software development on C Sharp with Fishbowl, interacting with the Fishbowl API, showing off some of the developer tools and products that we have available for developers to speed the development with Fishbowl. And so we're going to go about maybe an hour and a half today. And one of the things that I'd like to actually introduce onto the show is one of our employees, Inder. Say hi, Inder.
Hi, Israel, and hey, everybody, whoever's watching it.
He's one of our software developers in Toowoomba, Australia, helping our customers in that time zone manage their software projects and does the software development himself, and also helps with some of our customers here in the United States with excess capacity and some of the projects that we have here for our customers. So we're just gonna chat a little bit for a few minutes, just getting everybody familiar with Inder, his background and things like that, and then we'll get into the code. So Inder, tell us about your connection with California. I think people should hear about that to start.
Yeah, so I was educated in California, and that is basically what my connection to California is. And I happen to be in Australia now. And then when it came down to finding a job here, um, I guess Israel connected with me better because he probably thought, I know the business side, how the Americans operate basically. And plus my education, I had a degree in computer science, and well, the rest is a history.
Yeah, yeah.
Pretty much.
How did it, so let's talk about that a little bit. So you were I posted a job ad for the, what was it called, in, it's not Craigslist in Australia.
It's Indeed. I think you were on Indeed, is
I think it
right?
was on Indeed. It was on
Yeah,
Indeed Australia, and you were, I think, my second interview in Australia,
yeah,
and
that's right.
you and I got along really well. Inder, you actually speak Spanish, right? Because
Yeah,
a little bit of Spanish, right?
yeah, sí, poquito. Yeah,
Un poquito. So we got to connect a little bit over that. One of these days, if you ever meet him in person, he's got a lot of great stories about living in California and being an awesome guy. And yeah, Inder and I just kind of hit it off early on and hired him without an in-person interview, and only got to see him like for the first time about 4 months later. Right, Inder? I think I came to Australia to just visit with you, and
yeah.
that was a whole lot of fun. We met up in Sunshine Coast at the old Fishbowl offices at the university they had there in Australia, and yeah, the rest was history.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I had never really expected to get the job that I got because the place where I was living at didn't have any IT jobs here, or anything nearby. So I was just like randomly going and posting my resumes to people jobs elsewhere, and I just happened to you know see this post in Sunshine Coast, and I and did apply for it, and then it was like work from home. I'm like, yeah, I can work from home, but I will not be in Sunshine Coast. And Israel was like, it's good, you can do that.
Yeah, because I'm in California. I'm nowhere near Sunshine Coast. Yeah. Now, so for people that aren't familiar, let me pull up the map of Sunshine Coast in Australia, and that's Hawaii. Oops. And I'm really surprised how good remote desktop is working over this connection. So here we go. So Inder's over here in this area called Toowoomba, and the Sunshine Coast area has all these dots in. That's where that is. That's like a 3-hour drive, right? Um, we spent a lot of time kind of getting to know more about Australia through me working with Inder and with the Fishbowl Australia team, and um, even last year we had a international meeting in Singapore. Right, I dragged you all the way over to Singapore, and we met one of our other staff members in India. She's out in um, where's she now, Inder? I think she's in
She's
Bangalore.
in Bangalore. Yeah,
Yeah, she's in
Bangalore.
Bangalore right
Yeah.
now, which sign of the times. I'm locked down, Inder's locked down, and now our staff member Rekha in India is locked down. But we were able to meet each other in Singapore last year in September, just to do our kind of annual, software developer discussions and planning in person. But it seems like this year we may not be able to do that with the coronavirus. Maybe no one would really want to meet up in person anymore. Now we're going to do these more, Zoom meetings and live streams and that sort of thing, right?
Yeah, and then like over last few years, the the whole remote desktop remoting or meetings, like remote meetings have like gotten like so much better. I mean, imagine doing this like 4 years ago or 5 years ago, um, all the dots, if you had to connect them, it was like a nightmare to get everybody on a line,
Yeah.
and that's like so easy right now.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of my customers are like, even my family, surprisingly, they're not using Zoom for the purposes of like communication. Like, I just got a WhatsApp message saying, like, hey, we should set up a weekly Zoom where we all can see each other. I'm like, but WhatsApp has video calls. Like, why couldn't we do that through WhatsApp? You know, they know that we're using Zoom as a company, so I already have like the the company license, right? So like they're looking at me to go set one up, so I will. But I've heard of other families that are getting Zoom accounts just to have like a party line, you know. In fact, Inder, actually thinking of doing something similar for ILC, where we have a permanent Zoom for people to pop in there and see who's in there, and then leave whenever they gotta take a phone call or do do some heads down work. But you inspired me with that last article about how companies that are have a digital water cooler, right? So we're probably gonna try that ourselves just to keep Zoom busy.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
Yeah. So tell us, Ender, what's been going on over there in Australia in terms of coronavirus? Have you been locked down, or what's the latest?
Yeah, we are in a lockdown. I mean, we can go out, get groceries, etc. I usually, out of my family, one of us go and do things. We still have kids going to school, so I do go drop them off and pick them up. Um, but we have a term break coming up, starting later this week. So I guess all the kids will be back home, and but other than that, yeah, I mean the area that I'm in, we don't have um, as many cases. I mean, we do have about, I think, the latest they said about was 7 or 8 maybe.
Right,
Uh,
right.
um, and it's mostly the people who have like traveled overseas, and they have come back to Australia, and it's like every person that they're able to diagnose is a person who has like traveled overseas.
Right.
So
No
um,
local, no community transmission or what they call
yeah,
that.
yeah, there's no local transmission. So uh, we are we're good for that, I guess, for the time being. But yeah, it's just like everywhere else. Grocery stores are out of toilet papers. Um,
They got you too, huh?
yeah, I mean, we were there like I think on Sunday. Um, I mean, we just wanted to go pick up some stuff. We are not gathering, or we are not hoarding stuff
Hoarding,
for
yeah,
six,
yeah,
yeah, for 6 months or so, right?
yeah.
Um, but it's just, you just can't imagine that people would do that kind of people would have that kind of behavior. Like they will like they were like just waiting for store to open and just rush in, like it was like a Black Friday or etc.
Black Friday for toilet paper. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's very, it was very unexpected, but yeah, things are happening. I mean, uh, so is this coronavirus was
Right.
very unexpected for rest of the world. So yep.
Yeah, I hope we get past it. I hope we get back to I for the people that may not be watching this or watching this later, I've stopped on-site travel until mid-April, and depending how things are going with the flights and the availability and things like that, it might be really difficult to find a flight. Um, I honestly don't want to fly out of LAX. LAX is really challenging to get to here in Southern California. Um, although maybe less now because we don't have as much traffic anymore. But it's a bit of a jaunt, and depending on the flight availabilities, it could be pretty challenging for me to get out of the city, out of the town. So we'll see. Fingers crossed that nothing bigger than this happens and nobody dies. And same thing with you,
Yeah.
Ender.
Yeah, I mean, the only things that are going positive for, I guess, Australia is that we're a smaller population than the United States,
Yeah,
so it's kind of easier to manage just about everything. Uh, Plus, we do have, like, we do have healthcare system um, that is pretty much able to, provide testing to pretty much anybody
right.
who thinks that he might have it.
Yeah,
Um, I mean, a couple of weeks ago, I just had just a seasonal flu because it's a winter. That
that's right. It's winter in Australia. Yeah, it's
yeah,
getting to be
that's
our
right.
summer here in California.
Yeah, so I just went in to my doctor same day, and he's like, "Oh, you don't have the coronavirus, but just to rule it
Just to
out
be
fully."
sure, they give you a test.
Yeah, he
Wow.
just gave me a test like right away. I mean, from me making a phone call for appointment to to getting me tested was maybe less than 2 hours.
Wow.
Yeah. So those different places have different sorts of systems. So um, yeah, we do have the healthcare, I
Yeah.
guess, on our side,
Yeah.
going for us.
Well, Inder, pray for us here in California because we don't have that. We'll see. I
Yeah.
my birthday was yesterday. I spent time visiting my brother and getting oil changes at his shop because that was the probably the only safe thing I could do. Oh, can't go to the movies, can't do all that kind of social stuff has been canceled basically, and yeah, just stayed home, and yeah, that's kind of the way of the world. Anyway, we probably bored enough people about the typical conversation today, so let's get into the tech. So so Inder, while I get some things set up, tell us like some of your software development background and what you've learned over time working with ILC and the kind of stuff that we do.
Yeah. So when I came over to ILC, I I I pretty much had to learn because it's just a different way of implementing stuff. So whatever I've learned with Israel is I've learned from Israel. Um, I did have the technical capabilities, like I could program. I could go through an SQL query and see what the query is doing. You know, um, like I did have the theoretical um, understanding of the stuff happening in the background. But then when it came down to making integrations, like my very first integration was um, for this client which sells horseware
Oh yeah, I
here in
remember that guy. Yeah.
yeah, here in Australia, and so Israel's like, these are the requirements. This is what we're doing. I went over it. I'm like, yes, I can see what we have to do here. And then Israel gave me like a sample projects, like one of his earlier projects, and then I saw it. I could see how we will implement it, how our Fishbowl and the Fishbowl client, the SDK client, would communicate with Fishbowl, and and then it was an eBay integration, right?
Yeah, that's right. That was.
We were download, and I guess that was maybe the first one. Like we had never done an eBay integration. Uh, you know,
That, yeah,
that
this was years ago. Yeah, I remember that. Yep.
yeah, and so I basically started, um, going online, figuring out uh, what was the tools available to download orders from eBay. Uh, and then once we were like able to get down to it, Israel generated me some keys, some store keys, etc. And boom, uh, once we could see orders, I was like, oh, this is done because now I can see orders from eBay coming, and I know what to do on the Fishbowl side because all you have to do uh, is map, maybe some error checking, maybe some you know validate some orders, what exact,
Right.
uh, and yeah, I mean that was pretty much it. And slowly we started getting into Shopify,
Yep.
um,
Magento. I remember Magento.
Magento,
Yep.
yeah, and then we had a big one, Business Catalyst.
Yeah, Adobe Business Catalyst. They're no longer
Yes,
in business anymore. Can you believe that?
yes,
We
yeah.
spent
Well,
so much time on Business Catalyst and it never ended up becoming anything, you know?
yeah, because well, there was like something learning out of whole like dealing with Business Catalyst. Uh, the learning was that from Adobe's point of view, they should have made it so like customer friendly, developer friendly,
Like
that it
Shopify.
like Shopify
Yep.
exactly,
Yep.
but they just made it so hard for a developer to generate keys. They didn't have any documentation. They did not have a good customer service, like, hey, okay, well, there's no documentation, but you have excellent customer service that you call in, or drop an email to and say, hey, I'm trying to link to to your store, and such thing is not happening. And the response from there was, please refer to the documentation. But then there is no documentation. It's like you are between um,
Rock in a hard
uh,
place.
yeah, between a rock and a hard place. And that was the only one we did, and we didn't do anything after that
We
with
never, yeah,
business.
we spent so much time making that work. Never had another client come back to us. And when I got the news article, I think last year, saying that Adobe is shutting down Business Catalyst, I'm like, yep, like, yeah, I could see it from years ago because they had no vision with it. I think they bought it from some other company, and yeah, it was a challenging platform. I
Yeah,
think.
I mean, like even like when you buy, like, I guess, stuff from other company, or you take over or whatnot, right? um, you have to have a sort of a roadmap of where you want to take it, where you are at the moment. And
Yeah,
they should probably do like analysis, what the customers are facing at the moment, and what sort of feedback they're getting, and how can they make it better, so they can possibly
I think it
generate
was
more revenue.
I think it was that project where I coined the phrase, and this you guys may feel like this or not feel like this. Let me know in the comments. I feel like sometimes developers hate other developers because like that's the only thing I can think of when we come across those kind of situations where it's like, no, are you serious? Like we're this is the kind of API we're working with. This is the kind of data that we're working with. This kind of inconsistency. The one that gets me the most are um, like misspellings in the API. It's like not only is it going to be misspelled in your code, but now it's got to be misspelled in my code. Thanks. You know, um, it's super funny. Like and that's the only thing I can think of. Is like because we have other developers, Reika, Gustavo, myself, you, Inder, and it's like we always come across a weird situation where it's like this could have been easier had they just designed this a bit better. You know? Um, what are some other one more memorable thing working for ILC, and then we'll get into the actual code. We show some people how to connect to the Fishbowl API and with our tools and do something special with it.
Um, one more memorable thing, good or bad?
Well, it could be good, it could be bad, doesn't matter. Hope it's not that bad, but it could be fun
Uh,
for the viewers.
um, um, I guess a bad one. I'm not gonna name a client, but there was a
No,
client of
please don't.
ours, yeah, in the United States, right? Um, so we started developing a plugin, um,
Oh
and
yeah, Java plugin. Yep.
it was a Java plugin, and we are inputting lots of time into it, and that must have been my second or third, or maybe a fourth plugin, one of the earlier ones. So Israel just happens to be on site for a couple of weeks, and me and Israel lost touch. I mean, I could see him online every day. We would exchange messages, regarding um, some other projects or how things are rolling, any issues and stuff like that. But then what ended up happening, I ended up like digging like a bigger hole than
Yes. Yeah,
uh,
I remember this one. Yep.
yeah, and then I couldn't get out of it. I have just input too much time, and I've just like gone just way too deeper into this project, where I mean, honestly, what happens is when
Well, like
you,
way beyond reasonable, I guess you could say. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, you start losing your sleep and you start dreaming about,
The code.
windows popping up, and windows not popping up, like the code is pretty much ruling your sleep.
Right.
Um, and then Israel and I would gather like I think 3 weeks later, and I'm like, this is what's happening, and he's like, oh no, I think we messed up. We need to recover. We can recover, and we just I wish we could have like connected and done things earlier to get out of it. So the lesson was that we had to roll back, and we had to get to a point where we thought, hey, we are good up until this point, and everything that we've done after this, it's
Just throw it out.
we'll throw it out. And once we agreed on that, we pretty much said, okay, so this is what we're gonna do moving forward. All right, so if it doesn't behave such a way, um, let's not expect it to behave in such a way. Let's just design a way, where we would have like a window popping up on the side, and customer selecting.
Right. We were
Say,
trying to what the for the viewers, we were trying to have like a hierarchy table work a certain way, and it just wasn't. It just wasn't working, and we couldn't figure out fast enough, and the design that we had wasn't good. And what we ended up doing was say, you know what? If that doesn't work, let's not force that design issue or tooling issue force us to not move forward. Let's just make a pop-up of what we need to ask the user to select, and then close it and reopen the pop-up with another question or another issue, instead of making this super well designed experience where it's like you click on something, it opens up another tree item, and this sort of thing. And it got really crazy, and it just didn't work. So the right thing to do was to give up on it and just try a different model. Just get ourselves unstuck, basically. Yeah, I remember that
yeah,
project. I think I even had to go on site for free once,
okay.
basically, for that one. Yeah, not everything works out, and I think for us, it's more on us to be able to identify what we've done wrong on our project and what we could have done better, and then take that into consideration. You know.
Yeah, and then it's like a lesson learned, right? Once you learn it and make sure we don't repeat it, again. And yeah, that's that was definitely a big one for
Yeah.
me. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, let's get into some code. 'Cause I'm sure we're almost half hour in here. Haven't written much of a line of code at all. So So for the audience, just to kind of explain some of the development practices that we do and some of the capabilities that we have, we connect to the Fishbowl API to send and receive data in order to complete the integrations that we have. Those things could include Shopify integrations, ShipStation integrations, ShipRush, ShipWorks, all the ships. We've also written custom desktop applications for customers where they, manage purchase orders or manage inventory data and things like that alongside Fishbowl, right? And today I want to talk to everybody about the kind of tooling that we use to make that a fast process for us, but also introduce it to other C# developers, where they might even consider buying some of our tools and us allowing us to support them in order to make their projects just as performant and just as robust and reliable as our integrations are when we're dealing with connecting with the Fishbowl API and interacting with that, right? So Inder, I'm going to pull up the Fishbowl API just to introduce people into it. And basically, one of the things that people should recognize when dealing with the Fishbowl API is that it's not the easiest thing to work with, right? They provide very basic sample code on their Fishbowl developer tools. And if you pull down this project, it's just going to be a zip file. But basically what it is, it's just writing the payload, like this, this JSON or this XML, to the same Fishbowl port on the server in order to communicate, right? So it's not very fun. It's not very so even I think Fishbowl developer hook is one of them. Anyway, we'll get to some of the troubleshooting aspects of it. But the idea is today, for our purposes, what we're going to do is import an order, right? And we're going to use some of the interfaces to do that. Explain what that process looks like, what Fishbowl is going to expect us to send them, and then show you how we do that in code, right? So one of the things that we have to understand when we're dealing with the Fishbowl API is that they want us to use mostly the CSV import process that's inside of Fishbowl today, right? And these CSV imports look like just like anything else. I'm going to pick the one that we're going to mess with today, the sales order CSV, and they have what you should expect for the header, what you should expect for the line items, things like that. All these fields are going to be part of the file that we're going to import into Fishbowl so that we can, automate maybe a Shopify connection or a EDI order, that sort of thing, and be able to communicate this stuff down. While I get some things going, Ender, do you want to tell them how our first Fishbowl Java client looked like? It was a mess, right? Ender?
Yeah, I'm here as well.
Yep. So let's just show people what we do now. So remember last Fishbowl we used to have like a Fishbowl class, right? And it was a mess. It was just we were learning how to create libraries for ourselves, 2 years ago and more. And now we have a lot better, nicer interfaces, a lot more structure in order to do that. And today what we're going to be using is the Fishbowl JSON client, right? And we're going to kind of walk through some of that right now. So what I'm going to do is provide my host, localhost 28.92, which is my port. I believe that's correct. The default Fishbowl port, yeah, 28.192. And then my application key. Now, a lot of people that are new to the Fishbowl connection and logging in and things like that think that there's some kind of magic with the key. There really isn't. It's just I'm making a number up. I think it just needs to be a proper integer. And then we got to give this thing a name. So I'm going to call this live stream app and the same description, live stream app.
Yeah, you just want to make sure that the key is not the same key is not being used by another app with this
Oh yeah,
with a different name.
yep, yep. And there's not and that is that key is 100% only aligned with the Fishbowl database you're working with. It's not like a global key or something like that. I think there's some really old documentation where they would ask people to email them for an application identify key, and that never happened. No one ever did that. That's not a thing. But you know, um, people tried. So what I'm gonna do is I'm using my Fishbowl JSON client. I'm gonna connect to it, and I think I can just log in. And here's my test login, and I'll test that. And this should disconnect or fail. Yep, failed. Right, so we get a Fishbowl exception because error code 110. Right, we don't get much of an error message back from Fishbowl, and from the error codes that Fishbowl has, when you first connect your application, you will receive a status code 110 or 112, which indicates you need to approve your application. Right, so we'll do that. We'll follow the documentation. So we'll go to the Fishbowl client, settings module, setup group, integrated apps tab, approve. Okay, fair enough. We'll go do that. Setup, settings, integrated apps, and boom. I've seen a lot of software developers on Java, Python, PHP, things like that. They seem to forget that, and they never get past this point because sometimes when I get to customers trying to connect to Fishbowl for the first time, they've got like 5 unaccepted applications in here that no Fishbowl admin has logged in. You have to be the Fishbowl admin to approve these applications so that a third-party application can connect to your Fishbowl and work with it. So when we restart this application, and let's see, and it worked. There's no error, right? So right now things are looking a little, well, bland. Like not a lot happened. So I want to log some messages to the console for what my application is doing. So I've got a on payload event handler that I'm going to add. And these are the sort of things that we do to kind of make our lives a little easier. And we're going to do a console write line payload, just so that we can see what's going back and forth between the Fishbowl application and us, right? And there we go. And actually, in fact, I'm going to make this a bit bigger. There we go. So we get the we log out. I think the login is the one message that we don't send it, but we actually log out. So what happens is when you log in, you'll be using a connection here. So if you pay attention to that window, we're logged in, the application is paused, and then we let the application continue, and then it logs out, right? So that's kind of like how developers need to think about interacting with the Fishbowl API, is that you're logging in, you're using a license, eventually that'll time out, and then basically log you out, right? Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to do some maybe some reading, some queries, things like that from Fishbowl, just so that we can get comfortable with the data. I think what we're going to do is a query. So I'm going to call my query response, and I'm going to say Fishbowl send request. I think data export. What was it called? Oh, I'll go to my documentation. What were you going to say, Inder? Ooh, not the private one.
So what I was gonna say is, yeah, it's very important to to use that using keyword in there, right?
Oh yeah, because we
Um,
have got the disposable iDisposable implemented on that class. Yep.
yeah, that's right. If you don't do it, if you just just declare an instance of that Fishbowl JSON client and you use it, um, the connection doesn't drop basically, right?
Yeah,
Um,
that's right.
uh, and you end up consuming all those licenses, and I get I guess after X number of logins, you'll get a message that you don't have a license anymore, any more users available,
Right.
and that could be problematic.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. That is something that even in the initial software development of this library, we got ourselves kind of confused. It's like we still have enough licenses. What's going on?
Yeah.
Okay, so execute query RQ. Here we go. Execute query RS. This is an old XML response. Oh no, it's JSON response. And here's how we send that request. So in the documentation, they've got this thing where we say execute query RQ and then give it your query, and it will respond back with data. So let's do something similar. So execute query RQ and query, and then we're going to say select num description from part, and then we're going to say for, and then we're going to, I don't think we need to do anything else. Let's just run that. That should work. Boom. Now we've got data, right? We got data, and so let's go pause what the response is. Let me do a console read line on there. Set a breakpoint. Look at our object. So we got the actual full object-oriented class, and then we got our data rows. And what these rows are is essentially they're just rows that would be generated from like if the CSV export had occurred, right? So we don't normally use this because we have a direct database connection using the read-only user in Fishbowl, and we'll just connect to the database using MySQL drivers and make queries ourselves. But then what normally happens if we don't have that, then we'll use this execute query to read data out of it, collapse it back into a CSV string, and then process it using our favorite CSV tool, right? So that we can map this result set into maybe like an object, a list of simple part objects or something like that, so that we can, do something, using object-oriented programming, right? So that's a basic query. Some other things that you could do with the API is really not much. Honestly, the JSON API is pretty bare bones. There's not a lot of requests. There is a legacy API that is available. There we go. That is a lot more detailed. This was the old XML API with Fishbowl, and it has a lot more objects to work with, has a lot more requests and responses to work with. It's all done in XML, and we also support that. We'll probably do that a different example of that as well. Not right now, but it's all part of the application, old legacy documentation. But we have that in our library because we're porting this to move forward into the latest tools available. So we can still use this to connect different properties and methods and things like that with the Fishbowl platform, right? Okay, so let's continue. So let's see if we can import a sales order, and I think that's really all we're going to try to do with this live stream is run a query, get some results, try to import a sales order, and go from there. So I'm going to make a sales order object. Oop, wrong sales order. Sales order single currency, yeah. So Fishbowl is a multi-currency system, right? So we've got classes for multi and single currencies, and we're just gonna build this sales order up. So I've got my properties I need for my header. I'm going to have detail items as well. Oop, looks like I don't even have the system collections generic. So let's go make that a thing. And new sales order item. Let's kind of import that. Oh, you know what? It's because I have the JSON stuff as well and the XML. That's messing with my namespaces. There we go. Perfect. So I'm going to import some basic customer information, and we'll see how far we get. We're going to get error messages. That's the whole point, is to kind of also get through that cycle. So I'm going to set my customer name to test customer, and I'm going to sell them B101 product number, B101 item type ID, sale, and unit price or price $7. Quantity, make that 3, 4, and that's it. Okay, let's see if we can import this now into Fishbowl. So the way that's going to look like is we're going to say sales order import response, and we're going to do Fishbowl send request import response, right? And then we're going to say sales order to import. So we actually make it really easy for us to just generate the request to Fishbowl, deserialize the response, and then make it available for us to process. Now what's probably going to happen is we might get an error. Code message. So we get the status code, that's good. And then we get the message, just so we can see what's going on. Okay, let's give that a run. Okay, so we got our message, error message. The following lines of the Csv import do not have the correct format to contain incompatible data. Address is required. Cool. All right, let's go put in an address. So I think we don't need that much, but you know, these are the limitations and messages that we're getting back from Fishbowl telling us, hey, that wasn't good enough. You need to do more. So we've got I believe we're going to have a build to address. So build to ship to address, ship to. I think that's it. I don't think it needs much more. Let's keep trying. Unknown carrier. Okay, so it wants a carrier. So I think the carriers in this system is like UPS. We'll try will call. Anyway.
Yeah, will call is sort of like, if you don't know what your carrier that you need to map to, just do a will call.
Yep.
Blindly, yeah.
Yep. The will call's typically there, or delivery, right? Tax rate name is required. Ugh. I didn't even know we did taxes here. Oh, we do. All right, let's keep going. Eventually, we'll get this working. Tax rate name, none. Oh. Hey, we got our first order into Fishbowl. Cool. And really, it's kind of that easy. So if you're working with like, Shopify, you've got to, map your data from Shopify data into the Fishbowl format. This is a heck of a lot easier compared to, I'll show you what that CSV structure looks like from Fishbowl. So we're going to go sales order, and we're going to pick our 1088. Yeah, that's good. 1088, that's the one. So that's what you're going to be dealing with in terms of the sales order CSV format. And this is a format we've been using for a very long time. It's just something that's now available. That's the only thing that's available for us to communicate with the Fishbowl API or to send orders in and out. Um, there is an XML sales order, as you may have seen earlier in the namespace clashing. Don't use it. It's just there for compatibility reasons. If we have a project that we just need to port over and get working, but Fishbowl themselves only really supports the sales order format, this one, and sales order details, which is the same thing but flatter. So what they do is they have a duplication of the sales order number, status, build to, ship to, all that kind of information, and then the line item data is the unique rows that you then see within Fishbowl, right? And really, that's about it. And now there's a lot more that we can do with this. That's going to take a longer conversation. We can manipulate the picks. We can actually send quick ships, right? So we can quick fulfill certain things. We can interact with the picking data. We can interact with the shipping data within Fishbowl. Let me just finish this so I can show you shipping. And we can interact with many different parts of the Fishbowl system in order to automate the things that we need in order to make Fishbowl a lot more performant and practical for our uses. And we develop these tools for other developers that might need them on C Sharp. We also make them available on not only .NET Framework 4.5.4.6, but also now .NET Core, right? So if you're only interested in the kind of cross-platform development and you want to write some code to interact with Fishbowl on Linux or other OSs, then our libraries also work with that. Inder, before we end today's live stream, is there anything you want to tell people about software development tools and that sort of thing? Any gotchas with the Fishbowl API and that sort of thing? I think we've covered a lot.
Yeah, I think we have covered a lot. But if somebody was, gonna use these tools, obviously it's gonna make their life easier than probably doing it manually, because it's not fun doing stuff manually, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, like, um, but then you really gotta look at the documentation when you're using these tools that we have created. Like in this case, um, Israel, can you go back to the sales order import instructions under Fishbowl client?
Yeah, let me go to the Fishbowl public documentation.
Yeah, like um, for example, the latest, right? Um, it says the customer is created if doesn't exist. The customer name,
Mm-hmm.
right? Created if not found. Yeah, but if you are using some of the earlier Fishbowl, they expect you to create the
That's
customer
right.
before
Yeah,
you.
yep, that's right. We had to create the customer ahead of time and then use it. Now the sales order CSV imports customers, so you got to get your customer names correct. Otherwise, you might have some challenges for sure.
Yeah, you might end up duplicating, etc., and then your data would be like all over the place.
Yep.
So using these tools is it's a good thing, but managing how you use it, right, uh, is something when you're developing things, you sort of have to know where you're going and how you're gonna get there.
Yep. Yep. Knowledge of the customer's data and the what's meaningful to them. We basically just had a very basic sales order import, but sometimes we get caught out saying like, well, where's the phone? Where's the email? Well, it's like, well, we didn't have it, so we didn't supply it. But it's like, we want to use the customer's default phone or customer's default email. So when we're supplying data, not a lot of defaults are filled in, like this shipping terms, payment terms, FOB point, priority. Those are filled in, but not everything is guaranteed to be automatic, including the addresses. So it's on you to make that happen. The other thing that our tools also, before we end it today, we also interact with the custom fields and dynamic or on-the-fly generation of the CSV when you have multiple custom fields. For example, if we have 50 custom fields for the sales order and you only want to update 2, we generate a CSV format with just those 2 columns in the format so that we're not, making a file that's difficult to troubleshoot or to understand, right? Okay, awesome. And if you guys have any questions about some of the things you'd like to see, available in our live streams for software development, if you guys want to see how we interact with the picking or the shipping, just send us a note here on the YouTube channel. If you have any questions on software development in general or things like that, just send us a note. We'd love to be able to answer them on the next live stream. Well, that's it from us here in California and Australia. We'll talk to you guys later. Thank you for joining. Have a good day.